Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Marks from Marks. I am your host, Mark Radigan. This is crazy. We have a brand new format. You guys can all see me. This is going to be the first sort of video podcast that we're putting out with the show. It's great. It's crazy having graduated from the University of Rhode Island in May, moving into this sort of new phase in my life, and it means a new phase of everyone's favorite sports interview podcast. And so, without further ado, to kind of kickstart this new era of the show, I thought that I would bring in a really, really good guest, one that I've had a lot of experience watching and working with throughout the years at the University of Rhode Island, and someone that has transitioned from a bunch of different aspects of the soccer world. I'm joined by Northeastern men's soccer assistant coach and former University of Rhode Island Ram, midfielder and defender, Jordan Koduah. Jordan, my man, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me on the show. Appreciate it.
I'm thrilled. I mean, I've been having a number of guys from the men's soccer program at Rhode Island on the show throughout the years, and when I was trying to think of, I want to really get this series back going with a bang, and I was trying to find different people that are really making a name for themselves and starting to transcend the game a little bit, and keeping up with your career since you graduated from URI and just seeing your transition into the coaching space. I was like, you know what? No, this is a story that I think fans really deserve to hear, and you've got a really cool story to tell. So, I mean, just to kind of get it going, we were talking about it a second ago before we hit record, but first season with Northeastern, first season as an assistant coach with the men's soccer program. I mean, just kind of tell me a little bit about it. How has this transition been like for you? And just what has it overall been like kind of transitioning from that Division I athlete and really working hard to try and establish yourself as a player to then going on to the other side of the ball and really working as a coach to shape the future generation of Division I athletes?
Yeah, going into it, I already had some prior experience working at University of Hartford. Obviously at the Division III level, so the rules are a little bit different. Environment's just slightly different. But obviously coming back from a Division I background and playing, I kind of knew and always felt like I had that kind of understanding of just how things work. I mean, you have training, film, classes, like then you have the social aspect too that you're all trying to juggle. So I always felt like I'd be good at relating to players to that extent. I would say that the part that I was not prepared for, and shout out to my boss, the head coach, but he tried to prep me as best as he could. But the when you're in season, it's a different story. So I would say like just the everything off the field that you would feel like you don't even really need to think about, but you have to think about because there's so many moving parts like food orders, equipment, sizing of players, talking to the whatever company your school is sponsored by. So for us, we're sponsored by Under Armour, so making sure the sizes are well. So it's a lot of moving parts, and I would say like the first like month. Now I would say I have a grip on it, but the first month my head was spinning, just because it was a lot on my plate. But now, as I'm a little bit more seasoned, I would say I'm starting to get a grasp on it fully.
Was coaching always a career path that you were interested in taking? I mean, we're going to talk a little bit more about Next Play, this coaching clinic that you started with some players at the University of Rhode Island. But was that always a career aspiration of yours, wanting to work with players and then get into that space, or was it something that you kind of grew an affinity for once you realized that your playing days were finished?
Yeah, so I would say it's the latter. I never really thought about coaching as a serious profession. Um, and I always kind of thought that I'd be like a coach like 20 years from now. Like I'm coaching like my kids like U8 team or something like that. And then, just having a good time just to pass the time. You know what I mean? I had always been involved in coaching, whether like I like to acknowledge it or not. I was always doing clinics, camps in some way capacity, but I always saw that as a means to get extra money. You know what I mean? But and I never really took it serious until about like I would say not directly after I graduated school, But I would say like a year or two after I decided I'm gonna like move on from playing, that I was like, all right, I still want to be involved in the game in some way, shape, or form, and coaching is kind of like the easiest pathway for me. It's not an easy profession, but it's the easiest pathway to get into and stay involved in the sport. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And so, I mean, kind of what helped you along in that transition? Because I mean, we're going to talk a lot about your experiences at the University of Hartford, and then what allowed you to see success at the University of Rhode Island, playing as a midfielder for the Rams. But you've got a lot of experience in Division One athletics, and have gotten to see a lot of transitions in the game, because obviously college athletics has evolved greatly over the past few years with NIL and the transfer portal impacting things. And I mean, you're someone that has gone through the transfer portal, so you kind of have that extra knowledge. But just from your playing career, I mean, were there big instances from your playing career and just your overall experiences in the game that you felt kind of pushed you further along the coaching path and gave you a little bit more confidence to believe that you could succeed in this field?
Oh, well, I always consider myself like a player that love the game, like because you have players that can play for 10, 12 hours out of the day and then go home and not watch at all, or they just enjoy playing. You know what I mean? I was always somebody who loved to be like just around soccer like all the time and just be around the game. And obviously, like I'm a passionate fan as well. Like I like watching professional teams play. So I always thought of myself as somebody who like understood the game and understood like kind of how tactics, formations, positions, roles, like all those different things come into play. And I always thought of myself on the field as a player who was like clever, smart, and could adapt. And I feel like if you take those kind of characteristics and traits as a player, then you can not. It's not a full like 100 1 to 1 like I don't know swap, but it's very similar and it helps you. So yeah.
Where did that love start for you? I mean, because I know plenty of people. I mean, even guys from URI that we're friends with. I remember talking to a bunch of guys on the squad in 2024. Exceptional athletes, but then go off the field and don't really watch soccer, don't pay attention to the professional game, which to me, I mean, I'm always someone that like I've played soccer my whole life. I've been a fan of soccer for most of my life, and to me that's something that seems to go hand in hand. Where if you play that sport so much, you would then ultimately be a big fan of the sport just professionally to watch casually when you're at home. But in your case, obviously that applies to you, but where did this love for the game ultimately start, and how did you get your start in the beautiful game?
Yeah, I mean, I've been playing, or I started playing like around age like maybe 4 or 5. I remember my dad would take me to like this local clinic in our town. It's like when the like they would have camps and like some guys from like Europe would come and start coaching you or whatever. I was doing that, and that's kind of where I like first kind of my first real interaction because the coaches there. I don't remember. Obviously, like I was like 4 or 5, so I don't remember what we were doing, but I remember just how it made me feel. And it made me. I had fun, and from there, like it was just soccer only. Like I mean, like here and there, I'd play like basketball, or or I'd run track. I ran track for like 2 weeks in high school, but like it was always soccer. It was always going to be soccer, and I kind of made it a year-round thing from the minute I touched the field to the last time I wore a pair of cleats, like competitively. So yeah.
That's a big commitment, really trying to make that your whole sport. And then did you have like an early epiphany that you wanted to take this career to the next level? And then obviously you spent 4 years playing soccer at Windsor High School, but at what point did you kind of get the idea that maybe playing at the next level, at the college level, would be for you? Was that something you had thought at that young age, or was that something that kind of developed as you played more in high school?
So that's an interesting question. I mean, for me, like I kind of was just going through the motions. Well, not going through the motions, but I was kind of just like enjoying the moment. Like I wasn't really thinking about um oh, am I gonna play at college? Oh, what Division One school is gonna like pick me up, or like where am I gonna play? Like, I remember vividly in like, especially on my junior year when I really started going on like visits and stuff like that. That I was completely okay with going to a Division 3 school because I knew I was gonna play a Division 3 school, and if I wanted to transfer or whatever, like I'd figure it out. Like, and also like I was playing at like a decent level. Like high school soccer was still okay at that point, and then obviously like I was playing club, but I wasn't like playing at for an academy. I didn't really know what was going on. Like I know like with certain academies, like they have like a whole like staff dedicated to relationships with colleges, and they have that network, so that's easier for them to get recruited. And at the club I was at, they tried their best to help, but it wasn't like we were having like we had good players, but we didn't have the visibility to like go to like these major Power 5 schools that are looking at some of these other places. And Yeah, like I was perfectly okay with playing Division 3, Division 2, and then going from there. I didn't really realize that I had Division 1 potential until like one of my coaches from club. Like I remember we were on a trip to North Carolina. We were playing in a tournament, and I remember he was talking to me by the pool, and he was like, "Why do you want to go Division 3?" And I was like, "I don't know, like because those are the only schools that reached out." And he was like, "Well, do you want to go Division 1?" And I was like, "I mean, yeah, but like no one's really. It's not like a Division 1 school's like knocking on my door." And then he was like, "All right, well." Um, I think you have Division 1 talent, but you obviously need to like get your name pushed out there. And by then it was like the end of my junior year, and colleges typically have um, their recruiting classes set by pretty early. It's really tough to get in last minute. So my senior year, like I reached out to as many schools as I could. I was getting responses back, but it wasn't like I was getting like concrete offers. Like sometimes it'd be like, all right, you can come, but you aren't getting any scholarship money, or you can come, but you have to try and walk on, or you can come and but you're the last man on the roster. Like you know what I mean? So um, that's ultimately kind of what led me to University of Hartford.
And so then at that point, you're starting to have these conversations with Division 1 programs. Was the University of Hartford the only one that you had serious conversations with, or as this process wore on, did you have any other conversations with any other Division 1 schools?
No, 100%. I mean, I honestly, it was so long ago, I can't give you names per se, but there were a few that like were entertaining the idea of me coming, and then at that point, it just became about a money thing. Like, I knew I wasn't gonna get like a full ride right off the bat, especially because I needed to prove myself. So I figured, or not that I figured, but University of Hartford, like that was like the one that coaching staff at the time. They were the one group of like staff that like actually like seemed to believe in me and want to give me a proper chance. So, and it was nearby home. They had a great business school, so and I wanted to study finance, so it kind of all aligned. And I figured like, all right, I'm gonna go down there. I'm gonna break into the lineup, and I'm gonna ask for scholarship money, and then we're gonna go from there. So I kind of backed myself to make an impact.
And so backing yourself clearly panned out. I mean, your freshman year in 2018, you played in all 16 games, you got 3 assists, and you were a member of the America East Commissioners Honor Roll. So clearly your academics worked well, or you're pursuing that finance degree. But it's clear that that belief from the coaching staff was true, and it held throughout that season. And so going into that, knowing that you sort of bet on yourself, that you were backing yourself with your own confidence, that you had a point to prove to try and see if you can get some scholarship money toward the end of the season, and knowing that you weren't one of those guys on a full scholarship from the jump, how did that impact your overall early development, and how did you try to set yourself apart from others in on that roster, knowing that you had a lot to prove?
Yeah, so I mean, it's gonna sound cliche, but it honestly is just hard work. Like, you'd be surprised at the amount of guys, and this isn't like I'm not trying to throw shade to anybody at all or sub anybody, but surprised by the amount of guys who don't really work on their craft outside of the field. And I love the game so much, and I also like was very confident in myself that I felt like like it'd be a disservice to my teammates and myself, my family, or whoever, my friends, if I didn't work on my craft. Like, and if you're not trying to get better, and this is just a rule for life, like if you're not trying to get better at whatever you're doing, then like, what are you doing? Like, there's no point. Um, so. Yeah, like that's really kind of what set me apart was just like, all right, we just had training for 2 hours. All right, I have class from like 2 to 4, from like 6 to 8. I'm back on the field. Like I'm gonna work on my turns, my dribbling, my shooting, my long range passing, my first touch. I'm gonna watch soccer to kind of to understand what's being asked of me. I'm gonna talk to my coaches to see what they want me to do on the field to be an effective player, stay on the field. Um, so just the doing extra part is kind of what sets you apart, especially if you're a guy like me who like has kind of a chip on his shoulder. Like, you know what I mean? I always feel like I'm a talented player, but there's also like you're in a squad full of like 28, 30 players who are also talented. So obviously you have to do more to get ahead of them.
Spoken like a true coach, a real student of the game. Is that kind of a message that you're imparting on your players, like whether at Northeastern or working with younger kids with next plays? Are these the sort of lessons that you're making sure to illustrate to these players? Because it seems like this is the mentality that a lot of athletes really have, the ones that at least that grind and become the most successful. It's that never be complicit, never just be average, so to speak. Always be trying to go the extra mile and put that extra work in to make sure that you're excelling in all facets of your overall game.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. I mean, like I said, I think it's a rule for life in general, and I think that what with social media and like an instant gratification. I mean, I'm a victim of it too because I played in the time where we're seeing it right now where like guys have such a big following on Instagram and TikTok and whatever. Like you might find gratification and like you might feel proud of that, but what are you doing on the field? Like, because at the end of the day, that's the only thing that matters. And honestly, to an extent, that was the only thing that mattered to me. Like, so yeah, you know, we try to preach that here at the university. We try to preach that next play, and I think it's an important and powerful message to send out to aspiring players in any sport, not even just soccer.
And to kind of go back to your time at Hartford, your sophomore year was your most successful season at the University of Hartford. You guys made the America East Conference tournament final, and you started in all 20 games that year as one of their key contributors in defense. Got 9 clean sheets during that season. What was different about that year, kind of when you look back on your overall career at Hartford? Because you talked about having a chip on your shoulder, really trying to work hard and prove yourself your freshman year, and then into your sophomore year, you clearly have the trust of that coaching staff. But just throughout that season, to you, what was different? Were you starting to see a lot more responsibility given to you by the coaches, or was this just all the benefits and the fruits of all of that extra hard work that you had put in that previous campaign?
Yeah, so I mean, to be quite honest, like like anybody who was a part of that team that first year will tell you it was a horrible year. Like it was awful. Like we couldn't do anything right. We couldn't figure it out. We had we had like I wouldn't say a toxic locker room, but we didn't have the best like locker room in terms of players amongst players. Um, I would say like our coaches tried their best to kind of rally us, and I always like those two the coaches on staff that year. Like I still talk to them to this day, and we always talk about like how we just switched it around that year from my first year to my second year. And if you really look at the roster, like it didn't change that much. Like we had the same group of players plus some other players. We had a really strong freshman class that came in, but um, for me personally, it was an interesting start to the year because I was starting in the midfield as at the sixth position, which is like I would say is like the closest thing to my natural position on the field. And then I believe one of our center backs went down, so the right back at the time went to center back, and then I got pushed to right back. And at the time, I had never played right back before in my life. I'd always played midfielder up. Um, and at the time, I was panicking because I was like, all right, like if I don't play well here, then I might not be in the team. I might not be able to help my team out. I might not be able to get minutes, and I feel like I worked too hard to like get to this point. Um, and I remember our first game being Brown, or my first game there being Brown. And I was playing right back, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna keep it as simple as possible, and then as soon as I start to gain more confidence, or we're up in the game, up a goal, then I'll start to really like show some personality on the field, show my characteristics and my traits, and then go from there. From there, smooth sailing. Well, not smooth sailing, but it was cruise control. Like for me in that position, and we kept racking wins, and ultimately we made it to the final, and unfortunately we couldn't bring home the chip. But that was I would say like for my career, that was a pivotal point in my career. Like that was when the confidence was like, I would say the confidence was at like a 7. Like from there, my confidence went to like an 8, 9 because we were doing well, working hard, and getting results.
What did you learn about yourself during that point? I mean, you say it's a turning point, yeah, in your overall career, transitioning to a position that you've got no experience playing, but you clearly have the work ethic to make that position your own and be successful. But as you're going through learning a new position, going through the motions essentially all over again, what were some things that you kind of learned about yourself? Maybe not even as a player, but as a person, trying to make sure that you put your best foot forward and that you made sure that you made that right back position your own.
Yeah, well, I definitely learned that I'm a versatile player. I learned that like at my natural position, like I'm gonna give you 7 or 8 or 9 nines out of 10. But I learned that if you put me anywhere else on the field, bar goalkeeper, I will drop consistent 7 out of 10s. And you need players like that in any team, to be quite honest. But I also learned that I learned how to win. I would say I learned like a having a winning mentality, keeping the locker room kind of like buttoned up, making sure that you have all of your stuff together, and just making sure that you have like a good mentality going into games. Because from that first year where we didn't know if we were going to get a win or not, and then it was like very difficult for us to kind of get over the line in games, to that second year where it was like, all right, if we do this, this, and this, we're going to win. Like all we have to do is hit these 3 parameters, and we're going to win. That made a world of difference for me. And that helped me with my overall like preparation, and obviously like my confidence as well, like I alluded to before.
And started getting all of that confidence and you really start feeling yourself as a player. But I don't know, just kind of going through your overall career arc, it just seems season after season that there was a different hurdle you had to jump through. Being going on as a guy that you had to really prove yourself your freshman year, your sophomore year having to switch positions, and then your junior year, it's 2020, it's COVID. And the whole world shuts down, college athletics shut down. And I got to imagine that that must have been very difficult for you. And I mean, I've had conversations with other athletes who were at the University of Hartford at that time, and that was a very tumultuous period because it wasn't only COVID, but then the university made this decision to transition to Division III, which is a relatively unprecedented move for a lot of universities, especially one that had a March Madness team play in the big dance in basketball around that time as well. So it was a big change in athletics for Hartford, and I can imagine for you. But just as that sort of period is going on, you're not really playing any games. There's a shortened COVID season where you played 7 matches, but not really what many would say is a true college season. But then at that point, I imagine that there's a lot on your mind. What was that period like for you, and at what point did you ultimately decide that you wanted to move on from Hartford and try your luck at a different university?
That was a it was an interesting point in my kind of collegiate experience, I would say, not even career, just experience. I think that from the point where games where there were just no games, it was like August to December, and we weren't training. That was a very difficult period, just because obviously you're there to play, and we weren't allowed to play. So and we weren't allowed to go to school, we weren't allowed to go to classes. So I was kind of like, all right, what's the point? You know what I mean? So you kind of lose motivation. And you know how people talk about like seasonal depression? Like
Yeah.
it was like we were just so bored and we were itching to just do stuff and we couldn't. And obviously like that weighs a lot on the mental. And then obviously when the spring season came about and we started playing more games, we didn't even care that we didn't have a locker room. We didn't care that we had to change on the bus or that like we had to wear masks on the bus or wear masks walking to the field and then take them off and then when you're done you put them back on. Like we didn't care about any of that. Like we were just happy to just play. You know what I mean? And then obviously like with the university deciding to ultimately go Division 3, it threw us all for a loop. Um, None of us were expecting it, and they kind of told us. I remember like they told us a couple weeks before like graduation. So, it was kind of just it was a mess. And from there, I remember we had a meeting with um, our team had a meeting, and our coaches were basically just like, listen, like this transition starts the following fall, like the fall like after the spring. We'll technically still be Division 1, but we'll be like competing out of like we got kicked out of Americas basically. So we'd be competing as a independent school. They were like, we understand if some of you guys want to transfer out. We understand if some of you guys want to leave because I think the portal at that point was kind of was open, and then everybody had a COVID year. So like for me, I love being at Hartford. I love playing at Hartford, and I saw myself like using my extra COVID year at Hartford, graduating, and going from there. Um, but I also didn't like the treatment of the school at the time and the leadership of the school to communicate that they were going Division 3. And then from there, I decided to enter the portal and just see what was out there for me. You know what I mean? So yeah.
Yeah, that overall decision seemed to throw everybody for a loop, not even just at the University of Hartford, just in college athletics in general, because it was a relatively successful athletic program. And it seemed that it was a decision brought down by the university's sort of executive committee and the president and so on without really consulting many of the athletics. And so, and it was nice to hear because I remember when I did an interview with Patrick Krzyzewski, another former Rhode Island Ram, another former player at the University of Hartford. He was telling me his experience through this as well, and that the coaches seemed very willing to work with you all, knowing that obviously, like you said, people were going to transfer, that this was not what a lot of people set out to do. They didn't want to go from playing Division 1 to Division 3. So as that transition was happening, what were your individual conversations like with the coaching staff? Did they provide you any sort of assistance to help you possibly find another program, or were you kind of left to figure out the transfer portal, which was relatively new at the time, to left to sort of figure it out on your own?
I would say a little bit of both. Like I honestly, I had a conversation with the head coach, and I was just like, I'm gonna be completely honest. I'm thinking about pursuing options elsewhere. He understood completely, and um, he extended his help. But I think I remember like we kind of both knew that there would be interest there for me. And not that I didn't need his help, but like I kind of like I also like have a lot of I also had a lot of friends from surrounding schools like that if I needed them to put in a word, I knew they would put in a word if it came down to it. But when I once I entered the portal, like there were like a few schools that reached out, so that kind of gave me confidence that I'd find a new home if it turned out that I needed to find a new home. So
And so you were one of a few players to make the switch from Hartford to the University of Rhode Island. You said a number of schools reached out to you. What were those conversations like with the University of Rhode Island? I know Coach Elliott, Coach Bassett, always looking for strong talent, particularly in New England in the transfer portal. But was that more of an introduction made by the coaching staff, or were there people that you had already known with the program that had helped you out and put in a word for you? What was that conversation like that ultimately led to you committing to URI?
Yeah, so it was a little combination. Well, they were looking for a holding midfielder at the time. I think one of their midfielders left, and they were looking for someone to fill the position, fill the role. And obviously, I had experience playing there. I had experience playing college soccer. I had 3 years of college soccer under my belt. So it kind of was it from looking at it from the outside perspective. It looked like a perfect fit. Um, at the time, too, my really good friend and family, Derek Arhan, had just graduated. He loved URI and raved about it. And then also, like, Patrick Ajiman was playing there as well, and someone I consider family. And I know he was really pushing for me to go and join him at URI. And at first, for me, like, I was a little bit iffy about it because I just wasn't. I don't know if I was open to leaving Hartford, but at the end of the day, there was like that 10% in the back of my head where there was like a little bit of doubt, like, all right, it's going to be a new league, it's going to be potentially higher competition, different standards, more pressure to perform. So there was that doubt in the back of my mind, and obviously, like, there were also other competing schools with offers, especially honestly in A10. There were a few schools from A10 that reached out to me as well. So, I mean, ultimately, like, having the chance to play at one of your like best friends is like kind of like a dream scenario. Like, I feel like not a lot of people get to have that scenario when they play in collegiate athletics. And then URI is a beautiful campus, beautiful pitch, great facilities. So at the end of the day, it ended up being a no-brainer. And then obviously, like, the coaching staff, they had a lot of confidence in me and belief, and they met my family, and it was great. So from just like a vibe standpoint, and obviously academics, like, I felt like going there would be the best move career-wise for me.
And I got to imagine that having people there already embedded with the program that understand what the coaches are looking for, that understand what the expectation is for the program, had to have made that transition a little bit easier because you're obviously someone that has the confidence and the work rate to exceed expectations or match what's being asked of you. But there's obviously, like you said, there's a little bit of that nervousness, that anxiety, knowing that you're going to a new league with a lot more competitive competition. I mean, the Atlantic 10 is one of the most competitive college soccer conferences in the country. You've got teams like Dayton, got teams like Fordham, St. Louis. Those are some very serious, heavy hitting programs. And URI, in and of itself, that was another program that had been competing in the conference in the late 2010s itself. So once you arrived in Kingston, what was that transition like? You've got the experience that you could rely on, and you've got some familiar faces to turn to. But for you personally, just what were those initial months like as you transitioned into your first grad year?
It was different. Obviously, I feel like at a school like URI, like, the athletics are pretty peak, but you also have to kind of stay grounded, especially like for me, that was like my first real time being. Granted, it was like 2.5 hours away from home, so I wasn't too far, but that was like my first time being in school that I was like away from home. Like, I can't just like get in a car and then drive 30 minutes down the road and I'm back home. Like, so it was a lot of kind of just getting out of my comfort zone. I would say like the first week of preseason, I probably didn't even make a sound. Like, I was the most quietest guy on the team. Like, I'm and talking to some of the guys from that team, like, they all thought like I was not weird, but I was like just, I don't know, like, um maybe a little bit weird, but um and then I remember Pat would like talk to me, be like, he'd be like, "Yo, bro, just be yourself. Like, you don't gotta switch up the way you are just because you're at a new place. Like, trust me, you're fine." And from there, I started to open up a little bit more. Started to have more conversations with guys, building, like, real relationships on and off the field. And then that 2021 season was like, it's a shame we didn't accomplish more that season, because I would say, compared to, I'm going off on a tangent, I'm sorry, but compared to our 2022 season, um, the roster wasn't better than my last year at URI, but the way we played and our relationships with each other on and off the field felt like we had more cohesion that year. So, yeah.
It was obviously a relatively successful year. I mean, making it deep into the A10 tournament, losing only in the semifinal versus Duquesne. I mean, you had already had like a taste for competitive, truly competitive, like tournament soccer with Hartford. But was that like a different feeling competing in the A10 men's soccer tournament just because of, there's obviously a bit of a step up in overall competition. I mean, at just before the tournament started, you guys were playing the number 4 team in the nation, St. Louis, before heading and hosting Davidson in Kingston for that opening match just a week or so later. But what was that feeling like for you, knowing that you were taking a serious step up in your career in terms of that overall level and expectation?
Yeah, that was a good time just because it was I don't know if they did that the way they did the tournament formatting was because of COVID or if that's how they've always done it. But I'm gonna assume it was because of COVID. But I remember like we made the tournament, and all of the games like core I would say quarterfinals and on were hosted in St. Louis. Like that was a host venue. So you have like all of the teams that made it up to that point. Um, in the same kind of we were all like I think we were in the same hotel as Duquesne. Like it was crazy. And it felt like it honestly it felt like a pro environment. Like it was cool. Like like we'd play one game, or not like we would get to St. Louis there a few days early, train there and then go back to our rooms and get ready and there was a huge anticipation for like our game against Duquesne and it was honestly like a very exciting time. And if I were to compare it to America East, like it's not different in the sense that there might be like slightly. I think America East now like has been pretty good. Obviously, Vermont won everything like last year, but um, it's not different in the sense that like the competition is better. But I would say that there are more teams that could compete for a chip. Like at the time you had us. St. Louis was top dog. Nobody knew Duquesne would go to the final. We didn't think they would beat us, but they beat us, rightfully so. Dayton now has had a resurgence. Fordham is good. Like that's already 5 teams that I can name. Like America East, there was a time where UNH was kind of dominating the scene. So and now it's flipped, but that's kind of the nature of college soccer. But yeah, no, A10, like I would say, like it has a lot of teams that could just out of nowhere just be top teams. Like so, yeah.
You touched on 2022, 10 very competitive division, and 2022 did not end in the way that I think anybody would have hoped. I mean, that was a bit of a fall off going from a 10-win season the season before to only managing 6 wins and losing in a heartbreaking fashion on the last day of the season to not make the A10 tournament. I have to imagine that that was a fairly deflating way for your college soccer career to end. But kind of at that point, as you're going through that season, knowing that it's your final year of eligibility, knowing that it was going to be your final year of college soccer, what was your overall thought process like off the field in terms of what you were thinking about beyond URI? At what point were you starting to sort of decide if you wanted to move into the coaching space? Did you start trying to have conversations during that? Maybe trying to learn a little bit from the Rhode Island coaching staff to get a feel for it? Or was it always just a strict focus on this last year, and then once the season ends, then I can kind of get an idea about what I want to do beyond?
Yeah, so I mean, last year, mainly the goal was just get back to the tournament, and then whatever happens from there, like we'll go from there. Like I always felt like if as long as you make the tournament, anything can happen. Doesn't matter what team you play for, just because that's like I said, it's the nature of college soccer. The best team doesn't always win, but for me personally, like I wanted to play afterwards. I knew it was going to be tough just because I believe at the time I was 23, and there's a very small window like that you can make it like right after you graduate, or even like in general in soccer, like in some places in Europe, like 23 and you're not a pro, it's not looking too good. But in America, there was always a chance that you can make it depend like right after college. So the conversations I was having with the coaches were more so like, all right, like what do I need to do to make it to the next level? Where do you guys see me playing at? Who can I talk to? What do I need to do? And then going from there. So, but obviously remaining fully focused on the season ahead and what we have to do to get eyes on us so that the transition to find a home after school is seamless. Um, and yeah, but also like kind of making sure that my head's grounded and we're not getting too far ahead of ourselves. So yeah.
Tell me about playing with Patrick Ashimon. I mean, for those watching at home, those soccer fans, most of you Americans would know who Patrick Ashimon is. He was the starting striker for the U.S. men's national team at this summer's Gold Cup. He was a striker for multiple years at Charlotte FC after being drafted 12th overall from the University of Rhode Island in 2023. And you now see him playing in the EFL Championship with Derby County. So he's a perfect example of that sort of player who's in that like 20 to 24-year-old age range where you can still see success coming out of college in the United States. And I mean, his stock took off like a rocket after he joined Charlotte and ripped it up with Crown Legacy, ripped it up in the MLS. I got the pleasure of seeing him a few times, both in the MLS and then seeing his first game back in East Hartford when the U.S. men's national team came up. That was really cool. But I mean, you're someone who's obviously very close to him and you've had the privilege to know him personally and play with him. So, I mean, what was it like playing with him in college, just knowing the career trajectory he's been on since then?
Yeah, no, I mean, for Pat, I always say like he's probably one of the few players in the college soccer scene that could play for 90% of college Division 1 teams. Like, if you ask him to run in behind, he can run in behind. If you ask him to hold the ball up, he can hold the ball up. He can play on the wing, and because he's good with his feet, and but he also has the perfect combination of physicality where it's a nightmare for defenders to deal with. And by far, like on our team, like he was our best attacking threat. And a lot of our offense, like it kind of relied heavily upon Pat. Obviously, like we still had other players in the mix, especially the 2021. Like we had a lot of different options, but he definitely was our focal point. And honestly, getting to seeing him grow as a player, it was exciting to see. It was exciting for his family, exciting for my family and our friend group. And we knew like all he really needed to do was just get to the league, and then from there, the ball's in his court. Like the sky is the limit. So we all kind of believed that he had the potential to make it. And it's surreal that he's playing in the championship now, but it's also like, it's like, of course he's playing in the championship. Like he's a great player. So, and it was fantastic to see him play and play alongside him.
Yeah, I mean, a monster. 6'4", faster than every center back in the MLS, it seemed. And I mean, a guy with his frame being able to dribble like that, especially having watched him in college and then seeing him play pro, is just absolutely ridiculous. But to kind of build off of the point you were making earlier, it was so interesting to see that he was an example of not necessarily a late bloomer, but someone who was a bit older than the prototypical age of kids coming out of college and transitioning to professional athletics, and he was that success story. And kind of for you, obviously your career took a bit of a different path, and you opted to go not into the professional playing, but then moving into the coaching sphere. And so once you left the University of Rhode Island, after having these conversations and trying to figure out if you wanted to go pro or not, what was that realization? What was the point where you were like, you know what, maybe continuing my playing career isn't the right step for me, but coaching could very well be my calling. Was that like a particular day where you were just like, huh, you know what? That's it? Or was it just a gradual, like, coming to that point where you're like, you know what? This seems like this is the right course of action for me?
I would say it was gradual. I think right after I graduated, it was tough just because it's so tough for players who aren't like, who don't like live and die by their stats. Like with attacking players, like obviously like if you are looking at like a forward or an attacking player, like and you see their stats and you see like, all right, well, 14 games in, they have about 12 goals and 6 assists. Maybe we should watch that guy. Like, um, but for me, like since I kind of split time between playing in the midfield and the back, like, and I was a holding midfielder too, like I'm not gonna rack up like 7, 8 goals in a season. Like you kind of what certain positions, like I would say, like the USA needs to do a better job of identifying those kind of unglamorous positions. Um, and that's not even just for me. That's just like just a fact in general. Because if you actually watch the games, then you understand like a player's role or what how they can play or whatever like that. Um, but I mean, yeah, no, I mean, I tried, man. Like, I had like a few trials right after school. Like, I graduated school because I graduated early. I graduated December 2022. So from January to about September, trials. You know what I mean? And essentially was doing it by myself. Like, I had like a couple of friends who had contacts, and like their agents would help me out or try and like point me in the right direction. But it also was tough because I'm already on like a time crunch because I'm 23 at the time. And then my birthday passed, so I was 24. But then there was that gap where I just wasn't playing. I wasn't playing competitive soccer at a consistent rate. So now that gap closes down even more because you're not playing and you're getting older. Um, so now the window starts to close. So I'm like watching the window and like at the same time like desperately trying to like still find an opportunity. And there were some opportunities, but they weren't they weren't opportunities that I had pictured in my mind. And maybe that's I don't want to sound I don't want to sound entitled or anything like that, but I'm also very realistic and honest. And I know that if I'm trying to play for a certain amount of time, like it has to make sense on all fronts and all cylinders. And it also has to set me up for my future. And I would say like after I stopped playing, I got a real job. I was coaching on the side. I had like a U9 team. I really loved coaching them. It was really cool. But it was also like a side gig. And then my second year of coaching, like right after school ended, um, I decided to become a full-time coach because I really liked being in the game and I thought I could help the next generation, and that's kind of what led me over here. So yeah.
Yeah, that transition into the coaching sphere, you were a player development coach with Oakwood Soccer Club from 2022 into early this year. Worked with a lot of youth teams, a lot of like pre MLS squads, and then in 2024 you embark on this new journey with Next Play, which for those true Marks Remarks stands will remember the first ever published episode of Marks Remarks with Joey Turco, one of the co-founder of Next Play training, soccer training in Narragansett, as a current member of the Rhode Island men's soccer program. So it's funny kind of hearing him talk about working to create that, and then you getting involved, bringing some of your coaching expertise to allow for this like multi-pronged attack to create this coaching and soccer community in Rhode Island, in Connecticut, in Massachusetts. And to say that it's taken off would be almost an understatement. It has grown exponentially in the short time that it's existed. You have a number of different coaches with players from the University of Rhode Island and other universities, and so many kids that are taking part in clinics and individual sessions, just What has that overall experience been like for you? And just how much pride do you take knowing that you're playing an integral part of something that's really growing like that?
No, 100%. I mean, honestly, I want to give full praise to Joey, Connor, and all those guys that are down in Rhode Island, because they have. I feel like there's always been like a vacuum missing in with Rhode Island soccer. Like there's a lot of potential there, but it really needed someone to kind of take the reins and be like a positive outlook for that community specifically. And I think Joey has filled that role alongside with help from Connor and the rest of the guys over there. And they're doing honestly like a fantastic job over there. And if I can be like an outlet for them to just bounce off ideas or I don't know, provide some suggestions. It's a great working relationship, and um, for me, like I had some things going on in Connecticut, and then obviously a career change forced my hand to Boston, so it's been a little bit more difficult for me to kind of hit the ground running, but I'm still there for them, and it's been a pleasure kind of just being a part of that whole outfit and program, and honestly, it's just the start. Like I know Joey has big plans, and we're going to expand, and hopefully, I can find the time to just be a little bit more present with them. Like I would say, like for me, like I haven't been the most present just because um, being a I would say being a Division 1 coach is like having a full time job and then some. And then some is kind of taking up a lot of my time. But I'm here for them. So yeah.
It seems that you really take a lot of pride in shaping the future generations of
Hmm.
soccer players in this region, and you have a lot of lessons that you yourself have learned throughout your career that I feel just from talking to you that could be really useful for a lot of young players to learn. Just to have the courage to go the extra mile, to continue betting on yourself and working to achieve not only the expectations that are set out for you, but to go beyond them and really prove to yourself that you can succeed in this sport and reach all of those upper echelon levels and become someone like a Patrick Ajuman, or excel in a number of different facets of the game and move into coaching and move into running clinics like Joey. And I feel like that it's really cool to see someone like yourself really give back to the game in such a profound way. And I'm curious, just how much pride do you take in that, in being able to be someone that parents can bring their kids to say, hey, we want you to learn from him, and to be someone that is teaching these younger players, both men and women, to understand the game, understand their role, and allow for themselves to be successful?
To be honest, like, nah, I didn't think about it like that at all. At first, not even in the slightest. Like I always felt like I was just being myself, but as a coach. Um, I didn't realize how much it really resonated with like players, parents, communities until after I left Oakwood, and like I was getting like kind of like text messages and I was having conversations, and then I came back for the national team game, and I saw a few like old players, and then like like more conversations start coming, and then like feedback and stuff like that, and then like I really realized like, oh wow, like I did make an impact like here. But to me it was always like, I'm just coaching, like I'm just teaching you how to play like the right way. But you don't really realize how like your words really affect people until like um you look later on or have a moment to really reflect, and and then yeah, then you start to realize like, wow, like I really do have an influence on kind of shaping these young people's like careers. um and so I wouldn't say like I take pride in it. I would say I accept the responsibility of kind of being kind of that mentor, having that mentor leadership role. And for me now, it's just about how can I be the best version of myself so the kids and players and whoever I'm working with can take these lessons and bring them on the field.
Love it. Well, Jordan, I think that you've got an exceptionally long coaching career ahead of you, and if you continue down this path, imparting these lessons and any words of wisdom that you've learned throughout your career, I really think that you can make a substantial impact on the lives of so many people. Not even in New England, but just everywhere else where you may find yourself as this collegiate landscape continues to evolve. But I mean, thank you so much for joining me today. I mean, this was awesome to hear. Best of luck to Northeastern this season. I know you're just partway through the men's soccer season, and there's a lot more competition to go, as I believe CAA conference play starts up in the next few weeks, I would imagine. So best of luck to you, Jordan, and best of luck to everything you got going on with Next Play as well, because it's been growing a lot in its short time that it's existed, and I can only see it growing exponentially from there.
No, 100%. Thanks for having me on, Mark. I appreciate your time and appreciate the conversation.
Yeah, of course. And to everybody listening, I'll be sure to link all of Jordan's socials and ways that you can reach him about Next Play and learn more about that in the description below. But thank you all for watching. I'm glad that we got to finally be able to get Marks Remarks on video and start this new era of the show. So please follow, subscribe, do whatever you can. Share this to everybody, because we're going to have a lot more shows with a lot more guests in this new era of Marks Remarks. So don't go anywhere. We'll see you all in the next one. Take care.